Hello class, welcome to lesson 8.7, which is all about slope-intercept form. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to determine slopes and y-intercepts of lines and graph linear equations using the slope and y-intercept. I'm going to split this lesson into 2 days, so for today, we're just going to look at how to figure out what the slope of a line is and what the intercept is based on an equation. And then in the second day that you guys do this lesson, you are going to learn how to graph using that slope and y-intercept. Okay, so let's talk about slope-intercept form. That's an equation that gives the y-intercept and the slope of a line. So remember, the y-intercept is if we have a coordinate plane, it's wherever a graph or a line crosses the y-axis. So my y-intercept, it was right there. It's where it crosses that y-axis. We talked about that back in the first half of chapter 8. And then yesterday, or in 8.6, we talked about what slope was. Remember, we said slope is represented by the variable m, and it's how steep a line is. Okay, so our equation is y equals mx plus b. So that means that your slope always gets put with your x. Okay, so if your slope is 3, you're going to say y equals 3x plus, and then if I said the y-intercept was at 2, like maybe it crossed at a positive 2, you would write 2. B is your y-intercept. Okay? So this form is something that's very important for you to memorize because this is going to stick around for the next few years at least while you're graphing in your math classes. It's going to come back a lot next year, I promise you that, okay? So the better you learn this now, the easier next year is going to be. Let's talk about finding the slope and y-intercept if I give you an equation. So here we can see that it matches the slope-intercept form, right? So it's y all by itself equals our slope times our x plus our b. So our slope is always the number that's with your x. So in this case, it's a positive 1/4. And then our y-intercept, I'm just going to use b equals because that represents y-intercept, okay? If you would prefer to write y-intercept like this, I'm okay with that, but you should get used to writing b or at least seeing b equals. And that is whatever number comes after our slope and x. So in this case, it's not just a 6, it is a -6. And so this would be my answer if I was asked to find the slope and y-intercept. Make sure you label them with M and B. Don't just write down on your paper. If I see that, that tells me that you know that those numbers are important, but it doesn't tell me that you know which one is slope and which one is the y-intercept. So make sure you label. Okay, so then we have slope and y-intercept here. So we have y equals mx plus b. That is our slope-intercept form. And I look at this and I get a little confused because I see I have the slope and I have the x, right? My slope is that -7, but I don't see anything written after the x. So does that mean I don't have a y-intercept? No, that just means that our y-intercept is 0. Because we would never have to write +0 on the end of something, right? That's really annoying extra work that you don't need. So if there's nothing written after the slope and x, that means your intercept is 0. So my answer is slope is -7, y-intercept is 0. Now, if we look at this, y equals mx plus b is our slope-intercept form. If I look, this is not matching that form. I see in my slope-intercept form, y should be by itself, but here I have x and y on the same side of the equal sign. That's not helpful. So in order to get it to match that slope-intercept form, I need to move that 6x, so that way it's on the same side, or so that way it's on the opposite side of the equal sign from the y. So how do I move this 6x? I have a positive 6x here, so to move it, I would subtract 6x from both sides. So I have y equals, and then some of you are going to be tempted to combine these, but this 3 doesn't have an x, so I can't put them together. So I'm just going to write negative 6x minus 3. That's as simplified as you can get, okay? Then, now that it's in slope-intercept form, it matches our correct form. What I can do is I can say y equals negative 6x minus 3. Our slope is negative 6. Our y-intercept is negative 3. That is my final answer. Then slope and y-intercept of an equation that looks like this. Again, my slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. This time I have an x equals, and I don't want that. I want y to be by itself. So this time, instead of moving the x, I'm going to move the 9. I'm going to say minus 9 minus 9. And since this 9 doesn't have an x, I can't do anything to combine those two because they're different. So I have x minus 9 equals y. I'm just going to rewrite it with the y first. So y equals x minus 9. Same thing, right? I just wrote it with a y first. Now I can say my slope and my y-intercept. So my slope, I don't see a number written in front of x. So is my slope 0 since I don't see a number? No. My slope is actually 1. Because since there's an x there, there's at least one x. Okay? So our slope is 1. And then our y-intercept is negative 9. Now I'm going to do just a couple more things on this slide. So if I gave you a problem that looked like this, y equals 5. What is my slope and what is my y-intercept? Or sorry, that should not be a y equals. That should be a b. Okay, so if I give you y equals 5, my slope, I don't have anything with an x. So this is where my slope is 0, and then b equals 5 because it's the number without an x. Okay, so sometimes that will happen. And when you get something like that, that's when you have your horizontal lines. If you ever stumble across a problem that looks like this, what if I just had x equals 4? What is my slope and what is my y-intercept? This is kind of a trick question because if you have an x equals a number, that's where you get your vertical line, and that's your undefined slope. And there is no y-intercept. Okay? You will not really be dealing with a situation like this year. I just wanted to kind of introduce it to you so that way, since we did talk about undefined slope in 8.6, I wanted you to know what an equation would have to look like in order to get that vertical line. So we're mainly just going to deal with y equals mx plus b or a y equals a number, okay? Then I want you guys to try at least one on your own. So if I give you y equals negative 17x plus 4, what is my slope and what is my y-intercept? Good luck. Hopefully you said your slope was negative 17 and your y-intercept was 4. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out for some help. I'm more than happy to help you. Have a great day.